I came home from work to find my wife vacuuming in my son's room. Again? I asked, already guessing the answer. She sighed. It's the second time this week, Dave. I need this to stop. I shook my head, laughing a little. I'll talk to him, I promised, and went to find my son. It isn't that strange for kids to collect things. Some of them collect bugs or baseball cards or interesting rocks, but my son's interest was getting pretty weird. I could have understood finding Pokemon cards or even a box of old animal bones, but what he was collecting was dirt. It had started on Wednesday when his mother had been changing his sheets. She had noticed some dust on them, but that's pretty common for a 6-year-old. He wasn't a huge fan of baths, and sometimes he slept in the same clothes he had went to preschool in. It wasn't until she picked up the pillow so she could remove the case that she found the fistful of dirt that was hidden under it. It was quite a bit of dirt, or so she said. She claimed it was about 6 or 7 big handfuls, and she wondered how long he had been putting it in there. She cleaned it up and asked him not to put dirt under his pillow again. It seemed he hadn't listened. I walked into the kitchen to find David coloring a picture at the table. I could see that he'd been digging in the dirt again, even from here. It seemed he'd been digging in the backyard a lot lately. David liked to garden, which was weird for a boy his age, but we tried to encourage him to be curious. His grandpa, my dad, had been teaching him how to garden before he passed, and I thought that he might have been continuing the garden his grandpa was tending as a way to remember him. I looked over at the back door as I approached the table, and I could see the flowers coming in. I guessed that David, like his grandpa, had a green thumb. What you drawing, buddy? I looked over his shoulder and saw that he was drawing flowers that circled a big tree, the very garden that I'd been looking at. The garden, he answered, in his innocent little voice. I nodded, rolling a purple crayon under my finger. You been playing in the garden today? Mm-hmm, he said, his tongue sticking out as he colored. I nodded again, clearly beating around the bush as I tried to get to the point. Mom says she keeps finding dirt under your pillow. Is there a reason you keep hiding dirt under there? 'Cause he tells me to, David said. Who tells you to, buddy? He opened his mouth, but he seemed to think better of it. No one, he said, too quickly. That made me feel a little uneasy. You can tell me, buddy. Is someone making you put dirt under there? No, he said, and when he kept ignoring me to color his picture, I started to lose interest. Okay, well, no more dirt under your pillow. Okay, buddy? Yes, Daddy, he said, and I left him to his coloring, thinking the situation had been handled. I was heading to the shower later, his bedtime already passed, when I heard something that made me wonder. No, they say I can't do it anymore. I don't know. I don't want to stop talking to you, but I have to follow the rules. He was quiet. He seemed to be listening to something. I know you want out. I'm trying my best, but it's hard to dig. I peeked around the corner and saw him lying in bed. He was talking to his pillow. His words muffled sometimes as he spoke to whoever it was that he was talking to. If someone was talking to him, it was too low for me to hear, and when he rolled away from the door, I wondered if he was talking to the dirt that was probably under his pillow. I started watching him a little closer after that, especially when he was in the garden. He watered and weeded daily, but sometimes it seemed like he was just digging, like all kids did. But this digging wasn't as haphazard as it could have been. He was digging in a particular place, what would have been the south side of the tree. I didn't really like him playing there. It stirred up a lot of memories, but it would have seemed odd for me to tell him to stop. He was digging in the exact place where his grandfather had laid as he breathed his last. I took some comfort that he had died in his garden, a place he loved more than most people, it seemed. I'd seen him working in the garden all the time when I was a kid, but my interactions hadn't been as nice as the one I'd had with my son. No one was allowed to touch his plants but him. And I got taken to task more times than I care to remember. over things that happened in the garden. An errant football or a misthrown baseball was all it would take to get a lick with the belt across my backside. My son seemed to have been immune to this, however. When he was born, he had become the apple of his grandpa's eye. My dad would take him into the garden, teaching him how to till the soil, how to plant, and when to plant. They had loved it out there, but Dad had always made it clear that it was an activity for him and his grandson, and I wasn't invited. "You just mess it up, like you did when you were little," he would say. Now it seemed my son was keeping the garden in his memory, but it was still weird to see him out there digging so furiously. The dirt kept appearing under his pillow. Not just under his pillow either, the dirt was beginning to appear under his bed. His mother was beside herself, and every day when I came home, it seemed like there was more dirt in the house. "You have to talk to him," she said one night, my son once again coloring at the table. "Today, I found it under his bed, under his pillow, and in buckets in his closet. I don't know how it's getting in here, or where he's even getting it all from, but it has to stop." I rubbed my neck as I came into the kitchen. I'd never been as hands-on as my dad had been. I didn't want my son to fear me the way that I had feared his grandpa. I tried not to shout, and I'd never so much as swatted his hand. I wanted him raised differently, but it seemed that now I'd given him a little bit too much leeway. "Hey, I thought we talked about the dirt, kiddo." David nodded, not looking up from his coloring. "Yeah, I know." He was coloring another picture of the garden, the flowers in bloom, and now there was something different there, too. In the middle of the garden was a dark hole that seemed to sit right between all the colorful plants. A hole with a pair of red eyes looking out of it. I didn't like that hole. It was right in the place my son usually dug, and it made me shudder. "What's that?" I asked, pointing to the hole that he had colored with his black crayon. All except the eyes. "Nothing," he said, too quickly. "No secrets, pal. Come on. I won't be mad. Does it have something to do with the dirt?" David looked like he wanted to say something, but instead he just shook his head. "No, it's just a hole." I didn't press it, but I probably should have. I reminded him that the dirt needed to stay in the yard, and he went back to coloring. That night, however, I lingered by his door after lights out to see if I could catch any more weird conversations. I wasn't disappointed. My wife looked at me strangely as she came out of the bathroom, but I shushed her and told her to move on. She shrugged, shaking her head as she went past, but I was sure that the whispering had something to do with it. I was crouched by the doorframe like some kind of stalker as he wallowed down underneath his covers. When David started whispering, I was ready. No, they said I couldn't anymore. No, they'll catch me and I'll get in trouble. Mom already said I couldn't play video games until the weekend, and it'll be longer if I get caught again." David paused for a long time then, like he was listening to something, and when he spoke again, I could hear the tears in his voice. "Don't talk like that. Of course I love you. I want you to get better. I know, but I can't keep bringing it inside. I know why you want me to do it, but I can't. If you loved me so much, then you wouldn't ask me to." And then I heard him flop over and go to sleep, and if whoever he was talking to was still talking, he wasn't listening. I kept watching him over the next few days, but he didn't even go near the garden until it was time to water or weed it. David stayed inside more, reading or coloring, but the dirt still appeared. It wasn't a lot, just a few handfuls beneath his pillow, but my wife was beside herself with anger. She grounded him for a month from playing video games, and wouldn't let him stay at his friend's house until further notice. He nodded, accepting it, but I'd begun to wonder where it was all coming from. I mentioned this to her, but she just pushed it off as him doing it when no one was looking. It's under his pillow. It has to be him. Who else could be bringing dirt into the house? Punished or not, David didn't seem to be bothered by it. In fact, I thought he might be getting sick. He was listless, dark circles forming under his eyes, and I took him to the doctor at the end of the first week to make sure that he didn't have a cold or something. She said he was healthy, but she wanted to put him on something to help him sleep. Poor kid looks like he's suffering from exhaustion. The source of his exhaustion became apparent a few nights later. I would have probably never caught him if I hadn't gotten up to pee at around 3 a.m. I stopped at his door to check on him, and something didn't seem right. His bed didn't look the way it usually did. His pillows were a little too poofy. And when I flipped back the covers, I found that David's bed was empty. I started tearing through the house, checking everywhere that he might be, and when I came to the kitchen, I found that someone had left the back porch light on. I couldn't see him, not at first, but then I saw something come flying up over the hole in the middle of the garden. "I don't know," I heard him half whisper from the hole. "I thought you said you were there." I crept up to the hole, not making a sound, but as I got closer, I heard David start to get frustrated. "I don't know. I'm trying, but the ground's too hard. I can't get to you, Grandpa. I want to help you, but the ground's too hard. My fingers are bleeding. Please help me. I've dug so deep. I can't. David?" I asked, and he jumped and looked up guiltily. "It's a little late for digging, don't you think?" He looked down as he stood in that hole, and when I put a hand down and offered to get him some hot chocolate so we could talk about this, he shook his head. No, I need to get Grandpa out. He says he's trapped, and I need to get him out." He tried to keep digging, but there was no going any deeper. My wife came out when I called for help, but we couldn't manage to wrestle him out of the hole. We had to call for help from the people in the white vans who spoke in soft voices, and that was the end of David's digging. The men at the facility they took him to say he's doing much better. Being away from the garden seems to help him, but they want to keep him for a while so they can be sure. I hate it for him. I hate seeing David like this, and I hate even more that I can't tell them the truth. The truth is that I know why David keeps the dirt under his pillow. It's the same reason I try to avoid the backyard as much as possible. You see, I haven't been the best narrator, and for that I apologize. I had thought that only 2 people knew what really happened to my dad. To most of the world, they think he just wandered off and never came back. He'd been diagnosed with dementia after all, but he was such a stubborn old goat that he wouldn't go live with anyone. The only person he ever remembered was David, but after getting a call to come pick him up from the police, I'd tried to put my foot down. Dad didn't like that. He didn't like that one bit. This time, however, when he tried to put his hands on me, I pushed him away, and he smashed his head on one of those huge roots at the bottom of the tree. Dad had made my childhood a living nightmare, and I wasn't going to let him take my adulthood because I had finally decided to stand up for myself. So I buried him. I buried him in his garden. I planted some flowers on top of it. No one looked too hard. People moved on, and as his only living child, I took control of my childhood home and his accounts. Sitting here writing this, I can hear him whispering as I sit on the back patio and listen to the night birds. He wants out. He wants to be buried next to Mom, and he wants the police to know what I did, but he'll need something better than a 6-year-old to dig him up. The concrete I poured on top of him before I filled in the hole will keep most things from uncovering him. The more I think about it, the more I think this backyard could use a pool. Something below ground. Something with a diving board. I think those flowers have been here about long enough.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague.
Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.